remarkable showdown between the Pentagon and artificial intelligence giant Anthropic, the company refusing to give the Pentagon unrestricted access to its AI technology.
Anthropic, creator.
Is why won't you release Anthropic's AI without restrictions to the U.S. government?
With all use cases, basically 98 or 99% of the use cases they want to do, except for two that we're concerned about.
Here at IU, we bring you AI news updates, investigations, reviews, and the real story behind movers and shakers in artificial intelligence. Not the press release version. No, we give you the version that cuts to the heart of the matter, because the AI industry is moving faster than governments can regulate it. Generative AI is reshaping business overnight, and the future of AI is being decided right now, not 10 years from now. Yes, I said right now. So if you want artificial intelligence explained clearly, sharply, and without the corporate spin, engage, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Turn on notifications and stay ahead of the curve. Let's be absolutely clear. Artificial intelligence isn't going away. It's embedding itself into governments, militaries, markets, and everyday life. AI is here to stay. The only question is, who controls it, yo? And if you're not watching closely, you'll miss it. Okay, here we go. Let's get it in.
Anthropic is rejecting an ultimatum from the Pentagon to lift the company's AI safeguards or risk being blacklisted. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth wants to use Anthropic's AI model, Claude, for, quote, all lawful purposes. Anthropic, though, has been very clear. It's a hard no when it comes to using its AI technology for autonomous weapons and mass surveillance of Americans.
This is the kind of AI industry news that makes governments lean forward and AI companies sweat, because the United States has reportedly blacklisted one of its own artificial intelligence companies. Not for espionage, not for leaking secrets, for teaching a chatbot to overthrow civilization, but for refusing to loosen safeguards that could allow its large language models to be used more freely in military operations.
Donald Trump has now made clear that he and Pete Hegseth want total control over any kind of AI-driven autonomous weapons. If that doesn't scare the hell out of you, it should. Now, I know companies working with DoD have to find ways to work within certain parameters, but the idea that we're going to give up on any privacy controls or any ability to actually have a human in the loop in creating the next generation of weapons, which could happen with Trump and Hegseth's demands, is that really what we want? I'm glad to see that Republican senators as well and other AI companies are stepping up and saying, hey, this ought to be debated, not simply mandated by Pete Hegseth. This battle over Anthropic is much bigger than Anthropic. It really is what kind of future AI could bring, good side and bad side, to not only America, but to the whole world.
Skynet.
Yes, that's where we are. Anthropic, one of the most prominent companies building generative AI systems, reportedly declined to remove certain internal restrictions from Claude's flagship model. And in response, federal agencies were allegedly told to stop using it.
3:47 p.m. He's cutting off AI giant Anthropic, posting on Truth Social. The United States of America will never allow a radical left woke company to dictate how our great military fights and wins wars. I am directing every federal agency in the United States government to immediately cease all use of Anthropic's technology.
Think about that. An artificial intelligence company penalized, not for failing to build something, but for refusing to remove guardrails. That's not just a contract dispute, that's a clash between AI ethics and state power. And when artificial intelligence collides with national security, sparks tend to fly.
We are watching the biggest buildup of U.S. military power in the Middle East since 2003. And it's being overseen by Pete Hegseth, the least qualified, most reckless Secretary of Defense I think we've ever had, certainly in my lifetime. And as he beats the Iran war drums, Hegseth is also attempting to coerce an AI developer into letting the Pentagon use their technology without any restrictions. That company's Anthropic, creator of the Claude AI chatbot. And Anthropic raised concerns after reports that Claude was used by the Pentagon to plan the kidnapping of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in January. Hegseth responded by demanding that Anthropic agree to give the DoD full access to Claude for whatever it wants, or else the DoD would force it to hand over that access and blacklist the company from current and future contracts. After a very tense meeting, Anthropic has refused.
Let me ask you immediately, if an AI company builds ethical limits into its system, Hard-coded boundaries around autonomous weapons or surveillance. Who owns those limits? The company or the government that funds defense contracts? Put that in the comments, because that question defines the future of AI. Here's what reportedly happened. The Department of Defense wanted broader access to Claude. Understandable. Governments want cutting-edge machine learning, explained not just in theory, but deployed in real-world systems. But they didn't just want access. They allegedly wanted no restrictions, absolute control around autonomous weapons, restrictions around large-scale surveillance use.
98 or 99% of the use cases they want to do, except for two that we're concerned about. One is domestic mass surveillance. There, we're worried that things may become possible with AI that weren't possible before. An example of this is something like taking data collected by private firms, having it bought by the government, and analyzing it in mass via AI. That actually isn't illegal. It was just never useful before the era of AI. So there's this way in which domestic mass surveillance is getting ahead of the law. The technology is advancing so fast that it's out of step with the law. That's case number one. Case number two is fully autonomous weapons. This is not the partially autonomous weapons that are used in Ukraine or could potentially be used in Taiwan today. This is the idea of making weapons that fire without any human involvement. Mm-hmm. Now, even those, I think that our adversaries may at some point have them, so perhaps they may at some point be needed for the defense of democracy. But we have some concerns about them. First, the AI systems of today are nowhere near reliable enough to make fully autonomous weapons. Anyone who's worked with AI models understands that there's a basic unpredictability to them that in a purely technical way we have not solved. And there's an oversight question too. If you have a large army of drones or robots that can operate without any human oversight, where there aren't human soldiers to make the decisions about who to target, who to shoot at, that presents concerns, and we need to have a conversation about how that's overseen, and we haven't had that conversation yet. And so we feel strongly that for those two use cases should not be allowed.
Restrictions limiting high-risk military deployment. Anthropic reportedly said no. Technically, morally, they couldn't remove those safeguards in good conscience.
Technology companies are going to become the defense contractors of the future because AI is going to be integrated into many aspects of what the Pentagon does. And what we're seeing at the same time is this explosive and exponential growth in AI that is totally unregulated. There is no regulation from the United States government on the use of these technologies. I think, frankly, the United States government doesn't even know, as well as an Anthropic or an OpenAI, where these technologies are going. And so the only regulation is the terms of service that are written by the companies themselves. And in this case, you have basically a company saying, whoa, wait a second, we don't want our technology to be used for mass surveillance, or we want a human being to be in the chain of command if someone's going to be killed with an autonomous weapon. And you have the Pentagon saying, no, we get to decide how your technology is used, not you. And I think it's a seismic moment because it's getting at this question of, are we going to have completely unregulated AI with no guardrails used by our military, and by the way, potentially by other militaries around the world? So it's a very critical moment.
Skynet. Now that phrase is fascinating. Good conscience. That's AI ethics language. And when AI ethics language enters a national security discussion, things escalate. Defense officials reportedly reference the Defense Production Act, which is not subtle. That's wartime authority. That law exists for strategic infrastructure, steel, energy, semiconductors, and now, possibly, artificial intelligence systems. Which tells you something enormous. Artificial intelligence is no longer treated as experimental software. It's treated as infrastructure, strategic infrastructure. And when something becomes strategic infrastructure, refusal can be framed not as ethics, but as obstruction. Skynet. What if the issue isn't killer drones? Because those already exist. The US government already contracts companies building autonomous AI weapon systems. That line has been crossed. So why the pressure on Claude? Claude is not a drone. Claude is a reasoning engine. It writes strategies. It analyzes scenarios. It predicts outcomes. It negotiates. It decides. And that is a different level of autonomy. Battlefields are no longer just physical. They are informational, logistics, target assessment, risk modeling, psychological operations, Time intelligence synthesis. If autonomous systems already pulled the trigger, who controls the mind behind the trigger? And if legislation hasn't caught up, who decides the red lines?
Skynet. Skynet.
That reframing is everything. Now here's where this becomes even more explosive. Global tensions are rising. The Middle East remains volatile. US-Iran tensions have fluctuated sharply in recent years. And this is critical, if a real-world military escalation were unfolding or imminent, the Pentagon would urgently need advanced AI systems, logistics optimization, intelligence synthesis, target modeling, battlefield simulation, real-time data fusion, if geopolitical tensions escalate into active conflict. So here's the uncomfortable question. Did the Pentagon want or need Anthropic's artificial intelligence capabilities urgently?
Skynet.
Okay, let's take a little side quest.
General looks at buying companies. We typically want to buy companies that are quite far along building something that is differentiated, that is far ahead of what we have, and that would be difficult for us to catch up with. And so what it really comes down to is, do they have something that will become much more valuable when paired with our core product, which is Lattice AI? Can autonomy make this thing that they're making into a much more powerful product? And that's been the basis of all of our acquisitions so far.
Has undergone considerable consolidation. In the 1990s, the U.S. relied on 51 primary contractors. Today, that number is just 5. Lockheed Martin, Boeing, RTX Corporation, Northrop Grumman, and General Dynamics. According to a 2022 DoD report, fewer contractors has stifled innovation and undermined price competition.
We live in a world where 80% of weapons procurement goes to just 5 companies.
One of the biggest issues is cost-plus contracts,
meaning they're paid for time, materials, workforce, and then a fixed percentage of profit on top. Because that profit is a plus, a lot of vendors are incentivized for the cost portion to be as large as possible as well. They can often make more money when something takes longer than it was supposed to. They can often make more money when they sell a solution that's more expensive rather than a solution that's less expensive. And this wouldn't be a huge problem if there was real competition.
Anduril is carving out an alternative pathway to secure DoD contracts by buying up smaller startups and small to medium-sized businesses.
So when Anduril looks at buying companies, we typically want to buy companies that are quite far along building something that is differentiated, that is far ahead of what we have, and that would be difficult for us to catch up with. And so what it really comes down to is, do they have something that will become much more valuable when paired with our core product, which is Lattice AI? Can autonomy make this thing that they're making into a much more powerful product? And that's been the basis of all of our acquisitions so far.
Today,
Skynet.
Hold that thought and let us know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and share if you like this type of content. Show us some love, it's free. But here's where I'll say something clearly. The answer is no. artificial intelligence, as powerful as it is not developed enough to independently make life or death decisions, not with the moral weight a human life demands. And let's be honest, United States government already works with companies building AI-enabled autonomous weapon systems. That reality isn't coming. It's here. So the question isn't, do they have an eye? They do. That the question becomes, why pressure at Anthropic now? Why lean on private companies to align in the name of national defense? Is it about capability or control? Because when political power begins pressuring private firms to hand over cutting-edge systems under the banner of security, it raises a harder question. Is this national safety or strategic consolidation? History has shown that war has always been profitable. Defense contracts are measured in billions. Entire industries orbit conflict, so we have to ask carefully, not emotionally, but rationally. Is this about protecting citizens or protecting interests? Is it about responsible AI governance until legislation catches up, or about ensuring the most powerful tools sit in the hands of those already positioned to benefit? This is an accusation, it's inquiry. When AI becomes infrastructure, who controls it matters, and when autonomy scales, power concentrates. That is not conspiracy, that is economics. Tell me below, cause this is no longer abstract. This is an business impact meeting geopolitics. Zoom out further, other major players in artificial intelligence companies working on large language models, deep learning, neural networks have explored defense partnerships under any lawful use. Lawful, such a neat word. But lawful does not always mean ethically settled. Anthropic positioned itself as a safety-first AI company, responsible scaling, structured deployment, guardrails. So if a safety-focused company faces consequences for enforcing its own limits, what message does that send to the broader AI industry? It sends this: flexibility equals access, rigid ethics equals risk, and incentives shape the future of AI far more than public statements ever will. Now let's address the autonomous weapons controversy directly. Fully autonomous systems capable of identifying and engaging targets without human oversight are one of the most debated developments in artificial intelligence. Critics argue accountability collapses, errors scale instantly, escalation becomes machine speed chaos. Supporters argue faster decisions save lives, automation reduces risk to soldiers. Strategic rivals are already advancing, and here lies the brutal dilemma. If rival nations deploy unrestricted military AI systems, does restraint become weakness? But if everyone deploys them, does stability vanish? That tension defines AI trends 2026 and beyond, and it's why this story matters. Now imagine you're leading an artificial intelligence company. You're building emerging AI tools. Investors expect growth. Governments express interest. Do you embed immovable ethical red lines into your generative AI systems, or design flexibility to accommodate national defense? Be honest, which would you choose? Put that in the comments, because that decision will shape artificial intelligence more than the next model benchmark ever will.
Skynet.
Dural is ready, set, and in position to be the only U.S. government military contractor in the near future. And remember what he said?
Do they have something that will become much more valuable when paired with our core product, which is Lattice AI? Can autonomy make this thing that they're making into a much more powerful product? And that's been the basis of all of our acquisitions so far.
Hegseth responded by demanding that Anthropic agree to give the DoD full access to Claude for whatever it wants, or else the DoD would force it to hand over that access and blacklist the company from current and future contracts. After a very tense meeting, Anthropic has refused.
On the day writing, we believe AI can undermine rather than defend democratic values. The Pentagon already widely uses Anthropic. Anthropic argues safeguards are essential because the law has not yet caught up with AI.
Ultimately, this is an issue of trust between the American public and the military it supports and the company, in this case Anthropic, and the technology it possesses.
In a memo, Anthropic's arch rival, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, said he's interested in a deal with the Pentagon, but we have long believed that AI should not be used for mass surveillance or autonomous lethal weapons.
Tom is joining us here in Washington now. And Tom, there's some late-breaking news tonight on this from Secretary Hegseth.
Yeah, that's right. Secretary Hegseth posting on X that, in fact, he believes that Anthropic is a risk to national security and ordering everybody who does business with Anthropic to no longer do business with the government, or vice versa. If you do business with the government, no business with Anthropic.
Skynet.
Been under such immense pressure from the administration, Anthropic CEO said bet and stood his ground. Listen to how AI warfare was used in Gaza.
So there are two particularly relevant bits of AI which were really important in terms of target selection. One's called the Gospel and the other's called Lavender. And even if you just look at the ability of an AI to put together target lists much quicker and then hand it over to, you know, a human officer for sign-off, where that speed combines with what is effectively a political priority, which is to completely destroy the ability for life to be sustained in Gaza. What you had was, an absolutely enormous impact in terms of casualties that the Israeli army wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. There were other programs that were used. There was Lavender, which was used to locate relatively low-ranking members of Hamas and the PIJ. There were also sort of policies effectively which would say what's an acceptable number of civilian deaths per alleged member of Hamas, and ranging on seniority could be anywhere between 20 and 100 per actual target. So these are all ways in which warfare's already been transformed by the use of AI, and this is still within a context where there has to be a degree of human oversight and human sign-off. So what it is that Hegseth and Trump want from Anthropic is absolutely terrifying.
Skynet.
Hard ethical lines can carry political costs. Flexible systems may carry strategic advantage. And that subtle shift may influence how future large language models are designed. Globally, other governments are watching. If the United States sets a precedent that AI companies must comply with defense demands during periods of geopolitical tension, other nations may adopt the same expectation. And that's when artificial intelligence becomes truly geopolitical. Some systems tightly constrained, others optimized for dominance, cooperation, dominance. And that is when AI disruption accelerates. Because the future of AI will not be decided solely by breakthroughs in deep learning. It will be decided by power. Who controls the systems? Who sets the boundaries? And whether AI ethics survives contact with national urgency. So here we are. One alleged blacklist, one refusal, one escalating global climate, and one enormous question. Should AI companies be obligated to support any lawful military use? Or should they retain the right to say no even when geopolitical tensions rise? Because the answer to that question will define the future of AI and possibly the future of warfare itself. And when artificial intelligence meets real-world power, the outcome is never boring. Here ATAIU wreck it, package it up and give it to you. Raw. We follow the money, the power, and the real AI business impact behind the headlines. Because artificial intelligence isn't slowing down, it's accelerating. Governments are moving, companies are adapting, and the future of AI is being decided in real time. So if you want clear, sharp AI breakdowns, if you want artificial intelligence explained without hype, and if you want to stay ahead of the next AI disruption, subscribe, turn on notifications, and drop your perspective in the comments. Because the AI race is already underway, and the only question is, are you watching it or being shaped by it? See you in the next one.